At 27 minutes past 4 this afternoon, local time, the ground in southern Japan moved with enough force to derail a train, collapse the roof of a shopping mall, crack an elevated highway, and register the single highest reading that exists on Japan's earthquake scale. This is a developing story. It happened only hours ago, the numbers are still moving, and everything you are about to hear is the picture as it stands right now, not the final one. Some of what I tell you will have been updated by the time you watch this. I'm going to stick strictly to what has been confirmed by official sources, because in the first hours after a major earthquake, misinformation travels faster than facts, and the people actually living through this deserve better than guesswork. Here is what we know. The earthquake struck Kumamoto Prefecture on the southern Japanese island of Kyushu on Tuesday, the 28th of July. The Japan Meteorological Agency, the country's official body for this, put the preliminary magnitude at 7.1 at a shallow depth of around 10 kilometers. The United States Geological Survey measured it slightly lower at 6.8, which is normal. Different agencies use different methods, and their early numbers rarely match exactly. Either way, this was a major, powerful earthquake. But the magnitude is not actually the number that matters most here, and this is something a lot of Western coverage gets wrong. Japan uses its own scale to measure not how much energy the earthquake released, but how violently the ground actually shook in a given place. That scale, the Shindo scale, runs from 0 to 7. 7 is the maximum. There is nothing above it. And in two communities near the epicenter, Uki City and the town of Hikawa, the shaking hit that maximum. A 7 on that scale means it becomes impossible to stand, that unsecured furniture flies through the air, and that even earthquake-resistant buildings can suffer serious damage. That is what these towns experienced this afternoon. Within minutes, the meteorological agency issued a tsunami warning for a wave of around 1 meter, aimed at the Ariake and Yatsushiro seas along the Kyushu coast. Officials told residents to get away from the shore immediately. That warning has since been lifted, which is genuinely good news, because a coastal tsunami on top of the shaking would have turned a serious disaster into a catastrophic one. But the warning being lifted does not mean the danger is over, and I will come back to why. Now, the human picture, which is the part that is still changing fastest. As of the latest confirmed reporting, at least 50 people are known to have been injured, with a single hospital alone reporting more than 50. That wording matters because it strongly suggests the real total across the whole region is higher and still being counted. Among the injured are passengers who were on a high-speed train when the earthquake hit. The country's Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, speaking from her office in Tokyo, confirmed that people had been hurt, that fires and power cuts had broken out in some areas, and that roads, bridges, and buildings had been damaged. She said the full extent of casualties was still being assessed and urged people to evacuate to safety. At the time I am recording this, there is no confirmed death toll, and I want to say this clearly because it matters. At the moment this video goes live, no deaths have been officially confirmed. That may well change. I want to be very clear and very careful about it. No confirmed deaths does not mean no deaths. It means that in the chaos of the first hours, with rescuers still reaching the worst-hit areas, the authorities have not verified any, and I'm not going to put a number on human lives that the people whose job it is to count them have not yet put themselves. History suggests caution here. When this same region was hit in 2016, the confirmed toll in the first hours was low, and then rose sharply over the following day as a powerful aftershock struck and rescuers reached collapsed buildings. So if this number changes after this video is published, that is tragically not a surprise, and the update will be on this channel. The physical damage, though, is already vividly documented because Japan's national broadcaster has been showing it live. Aerial footage has shown a derailed cargo train. It has shown the ceiling of a large shopping mall that collapsed completely, tearing open the building and exposing its internal structure. It has shown buildings on fire, collapsed towers at an industrial plant, large cracks torn along roads including an elevated highway, and the pillars of a shrine brought down. At least a dozen houses are reported to have collapsed. The disruption spread far beyond the buildings themselves. Around 48,000 households lost power across Kumamoto Prefecture. The regional railway operator suspended all services, including the bullet trains. Kumamoto's airport shut its runway, and airlines began diverting and canceling flights. Mobile phone networks went down in places because the power failures and damaged transmission lines took the masts offline, which is its own kind of danger because it makes it harder for people to call for help or tell their families they are alive. And more than 150,000 people were instructed to move to evacuation centers. There is one piece of news in here that matters enormously and that will not make many headlines precisely because it is the absence of a disaster rather than the presence of one. Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority reported no abnormalities at the nuclear power stations in the region. After what the country lived through in 2011, when an earthquake and tsunami caused the meltdown at Fukushima, the status of those plants is one of the very first things checked after any major quake near the coast. And the fact that they are reporting no problems is one of the most reassuring things we have heard today. There is also an economic tremor rippling out from this because of where it hit. Kyushu has become one of the most important places on Earth for the manufacturing of semiconductors, the chips that run everything from phones to cars. TSMC, the Taiwanese company that is the largest contract chip maker in the world, has a plant in the affected area and evacuated its workers as a precaution. Sony, which also manufactures there, said it was checking its facilities. It is far too early to know whether there is real damage to chip production, but in a world still nervous about chip supply, this is something that industries far outside Japan will be watching closely. Now let me step back from the immediate chaos and give you the context that makes today both shocking and, in a terrible way, unsurprising. Japan sits on the Ring of Fire, the horseshoe-shaped zone around the Pacific Ocean where tectonic plates grind against one another. It is one of the most seismically active countries on the planet. Nearly 1 in 5 of all the world's earthquakes of magnitude 6 or greater happen in or around Japan. The country experiences tremors, small and large, almost every single day. No nation on Earth has invested more in preparing for this. The building codes, the early warning systems that can send an alert to every phone in a region seconds before the shaking arrives. The drills that schoolchildren practice from their earliest years. That preparation is a large part of why a magnitude 7 earthquake in a populated area has so far produced injuries in the dozens rather than a catastrophe. In many other parts of the world, an earthquake this size directly under populated towns would already be a mass casualty event. But Kumamoto specifically carries a heavy memory, and this is the part that will be weighing on people there tonight. 10 years ago, in 2016, this exact prefecture was struck by a devastating sequence of earthquakes. That disaster killed 275 people. It injured more than 2,500. It damaged thousands of buildings, including Kumamoto Castle, one of the most treasured historic sites in the country. The people receiving these alerts on their phones this afternoon are, many of them, the same people who lived through that. For them, this is not an abstract news event. It is a wound reopening. And there is a wider pattern this year that is worth being honest about. This is not the first major earthquake to strike Japan in 2026. Back in April, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck off the northeastern coast in a completely different part of the country. 2 large, powerful earthquakes in one nation in a single year is not, seismologists would stress, evidence of anything mystical or of some larger building catastrophe. It is what it looks like to live on top of the most active seismic zone on the planet. But it does mean that Japan's disaster response systems have already been tested hard this year and are being tested again today. I want to address one more thing directly, because it will be all over social media within hours, if it is not already. In the last couple of years, a piece of Japanese folklore went viral internationally, a decades-old manga whose author was said to have predicted a great disaster. It caused enough panic that it measurably reduced tourism to Japan. Let me be as clear as I can be. There is no such thing as earthquake prediction in that sense. Seismologists, the actual scientists who study this, are unanimous. Nobody can predict the specific day of an earthquake, and no comic book, dream, or prophecy has ever done so. What scientists can do is assess probability over years and decades, and what Japan's warning systems can do is detect an earthquake that has already started and buy people a few precious seconds. When today's quake is inevitably attached to some prophecy online, and it will be, remember that a country sitting on this many fault lines will always eventually have an earthquake that somebody somewhere claims to have foreseen. That is not prediction. That is math meeting coincidence. So where does this leave things tonight as the sun goes down over Kumamoto? The immediate physical shaking is over, but the danger genuinely is not, and this is the warning the meteorological agency itself is stressing. After a large earthquake, there is a serious risk of powerful aftershocks, and the agency has specifically warned residents to be prepared for strong further quakes for about a week. Aftershocks are dangerous in a particular way because they hit structures that have already been weakened by the first quake, and they can bring down buildings that were left standing but cracked. On top of that, officials have warned about the risk of landslides, especially as any rain moves in over ground that has just been violently shaken loose. So the people of Kumamoto are facing a night in evacuation centers or outdoors, with the real possibility of more shaking to come. That is why the lifting of the tsunami warning, while a relief, does not mean the emergency is over. Let me leave you with the honest summary, the one that respects both the facts and the people inside them. A powerful, shallow earthquake struck a part of Japan that has suffered terribly before. It reached the maximum level of ground shaking that Japan's scale can measure. It has injured at least dozens of people, forced more than 150,000 to evacuate, cut power to tens of thousands of homes, and torn up roads, railways, and buildings across the region. The nuclear plants are safe, the tsunami threat has passed, but the aftershock threat has not, and the full human cost is still being counted as I speak. I'm not going to dress this up or sensationalize it because real people are living through it right now, and some of them may be having the worst night of their lives. What I will do is keep following it and bring you a clear, verified update as the confirmed picture becomes clearer, especially on the one number nobody yet has, which is how many people were killed. If you want that update, subscribe, and I will have it for you as soon as the facts, the real ones, are in. And if you are watching this from Japan tonight, or you have people there, look after each other, follow the instructions of the local authorities rather than anything you read online, and stay away from damaged buildings until they have been checked. The shaking is over. The week ahead is not.